Hi, everybody. Friday with Sandy. We've got a very powerful, diverse, exciting candidate here, and he wants to introduce himself, which is dangerous. But let's hear it. Okay, Mr. Candidate, tell us your name and see if you can introduce yourself without getting lost.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael, and I'm a third-year student at Penn State studying finance.
Great. Well, you didn't get lost, okay? See if you could introduce yourself by telling us what your background is, what some of the highlight experiences have been, and what your goals are in a short little story.
Okay. So again, I'm Michael Matoli. I'm a third-year student here at Penn State studying finance. Over the course of my undergraduate career, I've done different things like working in student government. I'm part of a business honors program here at Penn State. And I've also had experience with public speaking, like giving a TED Talk. And my goals are to hopefully get an MBA and get some general management experience as a way to capitalize on the undergraduate education that I've had and also some of the work experience that I hope to have in the future.
Okay, if our beloved leader, John, were here, I'd turn to John and say, what'd you think of that, John? And John would say, well, it was very good, but it wasn't specific enough. You know, if you're introducing yourself, like you left out the fact that you work for BCG, which is pretty darn important, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay, let's both introduce you. Okay, you go to Penn State. You're actually a year away from applying for the 2+2 program, right? You're a junior.
Right. That's right.
So you're going to apply for the 2+2, not to meet this deadline, but for the year after that. Mm-hmm. You've got a very high GPA. You got a 3.8. You're at the Smeal College of Business, and you haven't got a GMAT score or a GRE score, but you did very well on your ACT tests. You were 94% in college with a 99% verbal and a high quant. So if you repeat those, if you get like over 85% on the GRE or the GMAT on both sides, you'll be a powerful candidate. You've got some great professional experience at BCG. You've done you've had some incredible initiatives at Penn State, and you've been heavily involved in TED Talks. Anything else? So with that makes you a powerful 2+2 candidate. Although, let me repeat, just for general interest, 2+2 favors people who are STEM oriented. Okay, that's not you, but they do accept a lot of people in finance and consulting. I just want to let people know that what they're really looking for, or what warms their heart, are people in STEM, because they're trying to convince them and you not to go to law school. Good. Okay, so let's do some maybe interview practice questions, since I think your chance, it's 2+2 is tough, but man, you got a lot going for you. Here's a frequent question. Could you tell me about your decision to go to Penn State?
Sure. So growing up, I grew up in Pittsburgh, went to a large suburban high school. My graduating class was 700, and I was the class president my junior and senior years. And so I was used to knowing a lot of people, being in big environments. So that conditioned my search for colleges to look for big
Okay, pretend you're John Byrne. Hey, John, how is he doing?
He would say I could cut it shorter, I think.
Well, it's not, what you could do is just make it more specific.
Okay.
Like, I think what you're doing is you're going to tell me the real answer in about 5 minutes, which is they offered me a scholarship or something. If there's something like that, you say that immediately.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Hey, first Harvard interview question, and this frequently is the first question. Could you tell me about your decision to go to Penn State?
So my decision to go to Penn State was because it was affordable for me and my family, and they offer a great education that I thought was really good for me and where I want to go.
Yeah, did you visit? Did you have friends who went there?
Yeah, so I visited, and a lot of people from my high school go to Penn State, so I got to hear a lot about their experiences and their success.
And I visited them and I sat in on a class.
No, nothing like that. Just I visited,
Didn't
I got
visit
to
your
walk the
friends?
campus, I got to hear about the opportunities and meet some of the faculty, and I felt like it would be a really engaging place to spend 4 years.
Yeah, okay. What you've done after 3 interventions by me and about 6 minutes is developed an adequate answer. You understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I do.
You're you're a, you're a quick learner. You may be a smart guy. It doesn't make a difference so long as you're a quick learner. But that's the way this question, why did you go to Penn State? Well, it was something we could afford. It was in-state tuition. I had a lot of friends who went there. My friends liked it. I visited, or I didn't visit. I spoke to my friends. I was very interested in business. They had a great business program. That's the answer.
Okay,
Got it?
got it.
Here's another one of their tough questions, even though you haven't spent much time there. If you had your college career to do over, what would you do differently?
I would take more liberal arts classes. I'm just a finance major, and I think that taking courses in philosophy and English would really establish those critical thinking skills that are requisite for consulting.
Good. How come you're not doing that?
I am actually. So I started junior year. I started taking more English courses and philosophy.
Okay, good.
Paid off such that.
Yeah. Okay.
But too late for a minor, unfortunately.
Okay. Could you explain to our reviewers what the Sapphire Leadership Academic Program is?
Sure. So it is a business honors program within the Smeal College of Business that selects 50 students from each incoming class to take part in, as you said, a leadership and academic experience.
And you're the president?
That's right.
Well, tell me, you and Joe Biden, tell me 3 things you've achieved.
So before I was president, I collaborated with the leadership of the Sapphire program to implement the Sapphire case method, where I got to teach 3 cases from Harvard Business School to some of our students. And so they read the case beforehand, and we did a 90-minute session like a real case study environment.
Yeah, you're not going to get to 2 and 3. What you're doing is bragging about 1, which is okay. They'll interrupt, but you should be able to. When they say, tell me 3 things you've achieved, I realize it's hard since you haven't been there long, and it's,
I can walk it back.
Well, yeah, don't walk it back. Stop 1 and tell me 2 and 3.
Okay, so established the Sapphire case method, also helped establish the Sapphire pods, which is our affinity groups within Sapphire. And then finally, we created an executive roundtable comprised of students who are presidents of other organizations at Penn State.
Wow, that's impressive. Good. You say you gave a TED talk. Could you explain that? At 19 years old, you said, I gave a TED talk called What I Learned as an Orientation Leader during the pandemic.
Yes.
What was that like, and what did you learn?
So it was great because I got to speak about, again, that orientation leader experience where I met students from 26 countries around the world. And it was daunting, but the fact that it was a virtual pandemic situation meant that I wasn't speaking to a real audience. I was speaking to cameras that were recording me. And I learned about what it takes to develop ideas that are relatable by other people and ideas that have impact.
That's good. Could you be a little more specific? I just, look, let me say again, you're a very powerful candidate. You're very articulate. I predict great success for you. If you've got one flaw, it's that you're a little too corporate and you're not answering the questions with hyper personal specificity.
Okay, got it. So I can say a bit more about that. Yeah, I think that experience specifically was cool because it wasn't my idea, even though it was my TED Talk. I was basically sharing the experiences that I heard from others. And that experience was very personally moving. And I felt like those were stories that other people could benefit from hearing. And so it was
Okay, just
honoring.
for fellow viewers here who aren't as, everybody knows what TED is. Well, everybody who listens to broadcasts like this. But how did you get involved in TED as an undergraduate?
So TEDx PSU is organized by TED students. So they run the conference and recruit speakers, but they hadn't had a history of actually letting students speak. But I thought that, again, my experience was really impactful. I wanted to try my hand at speaking at the
Yeah,
conference.
well, how did you convince them?
Oh, I submitted a pitch video and basically said, this is why I think my talk can have an impact. And here's what my talk would be
See, that's a
about.
great detail. You see, that's winning, that's ambitious, and it's impressive. Okay, now you're giving another TED talk.
That's right.
Called the conference is called The Danger of Ambition. What are you going to talk about? Well, let me say you're well qualified to address that issue.
Yeah.
Also, by that you're ambitious and accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say, I'm on your side, man. You're a powerful, accomplished guy. But what is the danger of ambition?
So the danger of ambition
Not
came from
Lady
my.
Macbeth talking here, you know.
Well,
You
yeah.
know what
So
Lady Macbeth?
it came from reading Macbeth and Great Gatsby in particular, of people who destroyed their lives because they were too obsessed with awards and accolades. And so I talk about how if you think about personal greatness as awards and accolades, that's not the right way to do it, because impact and legacy matter just as much. And there's lots of examples in politics, in business, of people who focused on that, on awards and accolades, and end up ruining their lives, their organizations, their families, and so on.
Fair enough. Can you give me an example of someone in literature or more importantly in real life who you believe that ambition was a destructive force in their life?
Mm-hmm. I think Elizabeth Holmes is a great example. She was that Stanford dropout who started Theranos, and she had a great ambition of trying to make people's lives better. I think she was the first female billionaire, or at least the foremost one. But her technology and her product was fraudulent and ended up causing a huge headache, not only for her company, but also for herself.
You think that's an ambition problem, or you think that's a corruption problem?
They probably walk hand in hand.
Well, the ambition might have been the doorway to corruption.
Yeah. And Julius Caesar says there's daggers in men's smiles. I think that's exactly right. That ambition and then sometimes corruption can work together in a harmful way.
Okay. I'm going to give you the same advice I give everybody who has stuff on their thing. You got to be able to explain it, and you really need examples. So do some homework. You should be able to do that in almost a near scripted way, in a conversational, but you should really have examples. You shouldn't be floundering around to figure out what your TED Talk said, okay, or is going to say.
Okay.
And then you delivered boy, you're quite a talker. You delivered a talk called "What Makes People Life Changing." Is that the title? What
That's
makes
right.
people life changing?
Yeah, that's right.
What does that mean? What makes people change their own life, or what makes people transform other people's lives?
So for me, I mean, I've had a lot of mentors who have been really impactful for me. So in that talk, I was trying to understand what is it about those people that we talk about as the ones who really impacted us, that showed us a new way of thinking or seeing the world? Like, what is it about those people that we can try to adopt ourselves and be impactful as well?
That's great. I mean, that's really a terrific topic. Can you go bing, bing, bing and tell me 3 things? here's the acid test, my friend.
Sure. Yeah. So one thing is they show you something about yourself that you didn't previously see before. I think the second thing is that they show you a way of looking at the world or at specific things. And then the third thing I think is they notice you and they give you opportunities that maybe no one else did.
So they're mentors, they're people who ask you to question yourself, and they're people who give you an inquisitive mindset. Yeah. Okay. Name some people. Whether
For
I
me
know them.
personally,
Yeah. Well, sometimes, yeah. Give me some examples, whether I know them or not.
yeah. Back home, there was a pastor, his name was Bruce Edwards. He was my first mentor in life. And he was a very people-oriented person, very, very kind. And he passed away, unfortunately, in a tragic accident. But at his funeral, there were a lot of people who talked about how impactful he was to them because he noticed them, he learned their names, he engaged with them every time he saw them. So that was someone who modeled something for me that I wanted to be like in the future.
Did you interact with him yourself?
I did, yes. We were supposed to go on a missions trip together, but again, he passed away right before that could happen.
Okay, that's a good example, particularly at the funeral. Can you give me an example of someone who more directly or also directly was it, resulted in changes in your life?
Yes, so I have another mentor who's a professor of management in the business school. And when I came in as a freshman, I was very ambitious. I had lots of things I wanted to do, but he helped me try to think about how it's not just about doing things, but it's about the narrative or the purpose that weaves through the things that you do. And so he worked with me in my first 2 years to help me think about.
That sounds, once again, you're a powerful candidate and you're going to go far. That answer sounds like you really like the guy, but you're not doing him a favor with that answer. You have to make it more personal, more idiosyncratic, more individual, and
Okay.
talk about the impact it had on your life. I mean, he was just giving you generic advice, the way you stated it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but he also actually vouched for me when I was interviewing to be president of Sapphire. He was part of the deliberation committee. And he said, I know Michael, I've seen his progression over the first 2 years. And when I got the position, they said he was one of the loudest voices in the room in support of you and your candidacy.
I believe it, but do you see that's a dangerous answer? What you're saying is he was a supporter of yours. He was an enabler of yours in a good way. And he was kind of what they call a rabbi or a mentor. But what the question is, give me some anecdotes or some stories where you did something. He said, Michael, I want to say something to you about what you just did, and tell me what he said, and then tell me the impact of what he said. Do you understand the question?
Yeah. Let me think about that for a second.
Okay, it's all right.
Okay.
When you prepare for your real interview, you've got to have stories. You've got to be ready to unload stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Once again, you're a bright, articulate guy. What you are doing is reenacting the way people flunk Harvard interviews. I'm not kidding, man. The interviewer might say, this is a powerful guy, but he's just sounds scripted or unthinking, couldn't explain himself. Wouldn't want to hear him be called. Whenever he got called on, I'd be looking at my phone. The kiss of death. Whenever he got called on, I'd be looking at my phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not giving you a hard time. I'm serious. Boy, you've done a lot, and this is really impressive. Okay, let me give you some other tougher questions here. You've done a lot. What do you think makes you successful?
I think it's the drive that I approach things with. When I identify something that I want to do, I really apply myself to it. And I also try to get around people who can give me feedback. And so that feedback informs what I do so that I can improve.
Good. Give me an example of that. Give me an example of what you consider to be a success. It could be traditional or something not on your resume, but something that you consider a success that followed that pattern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when I developed the case method, the first one that I taught went really rough because it's hard to obviously manage a room that big and to teach it. And so after that first case method, I met with some
Okay,
folks.
just give me a little more of the context there.
Sure.
When you developed the case method, where, when, because
Yeah. So
that might throw somebody off.
When I developed the case method last semester, so that was the fall, the first case I taught was called Leading Organizational Change, and it was authored by a woman named Katie Conboy, who was a dean at Simmons College. And we had 15
Yeah,
students.
no, this is hopeless. You'll never get to the answer. You need a better example, and you need to state it more quickly and right to the point.
Okay. The other thing I guess I can say is when I started those affinity groups within NLCG, that consulting group, that was something that I thought would have a really great impact. And so that was something that, again, I had the aspiration to do. And I tried to ask people in the Smeal College of Business who worked in the diversity and inclusion office about feedback on how I could make that group good, because sometimes affinity groups can come off as corny. And so trying to think about how they can be really impactful and valuable to
yeah, that's a better answer. If you could make it just bang, bang, bang.
Okay.
You know, when I was doing this, diversity program, what I did was consulted with people who are experts at this at my college, and they told me three things that were not intuitive, that were really helpful.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
You just got to learn to bang it out more. You're
I'm a storyteller to a fault, I guess.
I don't mind being a storyteller. You're not a storyteller. I'm going to give it to you. Not as what I've seen. What you're enacting during this mock interview is the fact that you've got a corporate mindset, and your answers are more corporate and more scripted than they are personal. Your answers are generic and scripted. So you need to be a storyteller and a personal one. You got it?
Yeah, got
it. I believe you're a storyteller. It's just something about this process is interfering with that. You got to get back to your roots. Okay.
Okay.
You understand what I'm talking about? It's critical, man.
Yeah, I do. I understand.
Totally critical. Whose job do you want in 30 years? Or 40 years? You're a youngster.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult. I look up to people like Robert Waterman, who wrote In Search of Excellence. He was someone that got an MBA, worked at a consulting firm, and I thought it was really cool how he took his experiences and used them to impact business theory and how organizations run. So I'd like to continue with a consulting firm and then have a role where I can turn those experiences into something that organizations.
Okay, that's an acceptable answer, but you've got to change it.
Okay.
Because the answer I was receiving for the first half of your answer was, I want to be an author. Okay, that's the kiss of death. What you want to be is, I want to be a consultant leader.
Yes.
A hero of mine is this guy who wrote this book, and then he followed up on the book by going back and trying and implement.
Right. Like Jim Collins as well is another great example of someone who did consulting and then doubled up on those experiences.
Good. What advice would you give the president of BCG if you had 10 minutes to talk?
I would say think about the future of business travel. With conferences like COP26, I think a lot of attention is being drawn to the sectors that pollute the most. And I think business has been a culprit for a long time. And then I'd also say,
he goes, yeah, I know that. What I called you in here for was for your firsthand advice on how we can improve the intake and development process of smart, talented youngsters such as yourself.
I would say continue to do the recruiting programs. I think those work really well. And then maybe think about.
Well, Michael, I do plan to continue the recruiting programs. Can you tell me something else? You understand what I'm driving at, right?
Yes, yes. I think having a conference where you also can bring undergrads to tour the office, kind of see the lifestyle of a consultant, a day in the life experience would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a better answer.
Right.
That's the kind of thing he'd be interested in.
Yeah, because I think most people know what consultants do, but not really the day-to-day interaction.
Let me tell you the way you start that answer, okay? What was most impactful in my decision to join BCG was this, and this. So if you could build those things out or continue them, that would be great. And the new idea I have would be this. Okay, that's the model answer, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to hear it, but just saying. Okay. Man, what'd you learn from besides learning how to walk backwards, being an orientation leader?
This is funny. So when we were trained as orientation leaders on Zoom, we were told to notice people's backgrounds. So whether they'd have trophies in the background or pictures. And so that taught me how to notice the little things about people, because a lot of times that opens up a lot of cool stories and things that people care about.
Okay, good. Let me say, let's finish off with this. You've got a perfect background for this Zoom interview. I've interviewed people who've got distracting stuff in the background, including flashing lights and slightly odd posters. And so for everyone out there, make sure if you're doing a Zoom interview that the background is very similar to the ones you see, similar to Michael's background or similar to my background. That's it. Okay, you're a talented guy. You're going to go far. It was great talking to you. And you know, shalom, adios, auf Wiedersehen.